Welcome to the Popular Pig Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rooda, and joining me today is Barrett Eller. How you doing, Barrett?
Good. Got the trip over from Des Moines this morning, so it's kind of nice being closer to the office.
Yeah, a lot closer than Jackson.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 hours versus a 4-hour drive. Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about revenue to wage ratio, which to CFOs in the industry is probably pretty familiar, but to other people in the industry, it's a form of ROI, a form of how people should look at their business that is just not all that familiar. And so we're going to dive into that. We'll probably hit a little wrestling too on the way.
Yeah.
To start off, can you give us just an overview of what is revenue to wage ratio and why we might be hitting on that today?
Yeah, so revenue to wage ratio, it's a globally recognized metric across business. And it's ultimately what is the return per hour or per salary for an employee, right? Maybe just to kind of give a brief overview, if you're talking pork production or manufacturing or any other industry, some positions could provide a 4 or 5 to 1 ROI for that hour labor investment. Some can be a 10 or 12 to 1 ROI for that labor investment per unit of time. And so ultimately, it's really important just from the standpoint of, hey, what are we doing within that unit of time for that investment to produce that revenue for our organization? And then how are we also protecting it and eliminating other wastes? And we can dive into lean management down as far as that goes as well too. Now, where revenue to wage ratio really kind of hit, like, I guess from the last 100 years, 120 years ago, pretty popular story, right, with Henry Ford, 1914. So he actually develops a system, or didn't really develop a system, he actually enhanced it with a production line. But what he did was he started to recognize what employees were actually doing, and they can have that visibility to their execution, and then ultimately being able to correlate what type of revenue was actually resulting in it. So he actually did something pretty extreme in 1914. He actually doubled their pay per day, a whopping $5 per day, but kind of a big deal back then, right?
If somebody today said we're just going to double pay,
yeah, exactly. If you were going to imagine that, right? If I was a hire
in an industrial job,
yeah, hire a fairing technicians. If I put a want ad and paid them between $38 and $44 an hour, or whatever else the metric is, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'd get a few hits on Indeed.
Can you imagine the dream team you could build though at $40 an hour?
Oh gosh, right? I know. I was gonna say like that's gonna be pretty intense.
If you had a team at $40 an hour, what do you think the PSY is that you'd be pushing out of a farm? Like if the sow can genetically, let's say, do 40.
Yep.
You got to be getting pretty close to that if you've got the best and brightest
right.
18 individuals.
Yeah, and some of that we'll dive into as well too is the environment, the resources you provide them, the tools you provide them helps enhance that as well too, right?
Yeah.
And there's a level of like, hey, within this unit of time, within this role, there's going to be a rate of diminishing returns. So that's, but yeah, you put together at least a pretty decent team. I don't think anybody would quit, right? So. But yeah,
Sometimes it feels like when we're looking at cost and opportunity, It feels like that Alexander Wald example with the plane with the bullet holes. It's like, oh, we need to reduce costs, and it's like, well, the quickest bullet hole to cover, it seems like, oh, let's cover this, let's cut labor,
right.
Or maybe we need more labor to help with the problem, and it's like, well, it's deeper than that.
It is much deeper than that. And ultimately,
I have a bias towards looking at labor as the source of cost cutting or the source of solving my problems.
Exactly. And then, ultimately, unfortunately, it's the latter, right? It's how can we cut this cost and still do as much, right?
Yeah.
And it's more about doing versus outcomes. And part of that, whether this is in the swine industry, agriculture, any other industry, right? When they don't have visibility as to what is actually occurring and able to provide proper data in regards to, now we know what is happening, what is it actually resulting in. When you can't start to answer some of those questions, you don't exactly know the value you're getting out of it, so you want to cut the cost. Yeah. And that could be labor, it could be feed, it could be genetics, it could be anything, right? When you don't have the visibility as to what you're getting, it's like providing some doubt. Like, oh, I know people are moving, something's happening, I'm getting pigs, but I don't exactly know.
So if you break it down as simple as you can, it's the difference of a CEO of a Fortune 50 company, an hour of their time is worth very different than the new college graduate who's stepping into an analyst role. And so revenue to wage is looking at, what is that ROI I expect on that CEO's time? And I'm paying him for that.
Exactly. Yep. And then also kind of going back to where we're, time savings. I think that's something that also goes back to the farm a lot, or even within our team, right? How we're protecting engineers' time or our time. It's because could be things that are distracting or fall into somebody else's bucket to be productive, and protecting our time to get that return. Now, within a given position, you can think, hey, like the best this technician role could provide us is a 2 or 3 to 1 ROI, versus understanding and having that visibility of maybe we can get a 4 or 5 to 1 ROI per hourly wage and start to expand that. Now, if I'm getting a 4 or 5 to 1, that's when we can start playing with pay increases as well.
So can you give us a little of your background? Because to that point, I don't feel like the industry knows what the ROI is on that hour.
Yep.
I think the industry has a clear expectation of what the ROI is on almost every other input, except that labor side. And sometimes I wonder if that's because we evolved from, I own the farm, therefore I don't care how much time.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to do it. And then we moved into this labored scenario quite quick. Can you speak to your background in working in lean management and various types of operations, and how this has culminated into experience with you also in a larger pork production system?
Yeah, you bet. So a few key roles that really played a big part in my career, and why I really love the swine industry and agriculture, is I got a lot of chances even when my resume was pretty underqualified. And so being able to develop them have been really good. So I was with DuPont Pioneer for a time there, and then understanding lean management concepts and how they did it as well too was extremely beneficial, about eliminating waste, making sure our activities that we're actually doing is netting us something really positive. I had a great mentor at Martin Marietta, second largest construction and aggregates company. I think they're steadily climbing that as well too. So one day I'm probably going to say number one.
That'd be cool.
And his background was with ConAgra, and as a VP of HR with an agricultural company as well too. And he's in Lincoln, Nebraska today, so still somebody I talk to quite frequently. But he really opened the eyes to performance management and what that actually meant, right? Which is, what is the talent that we're bringing in? What are we expecting them to develop? What's in-house talent versus who do we have to go recruit for? What processes we're really looking at? And, we've mentioned it numerous times. Moneyball is one of my favorite movies. So I still really started to resonate the two concepts between my mentor and that movie and just professional sports overall. And then at New Fashion Pork, working for Brad Frecking, is really beneficial in being able to help understand swine production, integrated business, even that much further, and being able to help them through different areas of production or lines of business. And what does it mean to develop team members in that? Develop what type of processes are you developing them for? And then how can you help optimize those? So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
A lot of different stuff.
Yeah. And then today, right? Last 4 years with you guys, or with, I don't even say you guys anymore. It's really all of us, right?
Yeah.
Closing in on 750,000 sows, numerous systems, management styles, ownership styles. It's been amazing. And I learn new things every day. So
when we were doing the voice recognition stuff from a technological standpoint, that was really cool.
Yeah.
The PigFlow point of care platform side of things, being exposed to dozens and dozens of different methods of driving production and seeing what's similar, what's different, what are the common gaps. That's been really cool. It's been really eye-opening. As somebody who grew up in the industry, it's been a lot of fun. When you think about lean management, you've walked into a lot of rooms where people say, we do lean management. What are the common gaps? What are the common misconceptions of lean management? And maybe just give us an overview of lean, and then we'll bounce back into revenue to wage.
Yeah, so ultimately lean management, I'm going to probably narrow down to two very good concepts, right? First is you need visibility. You need to understand reality to the best of your ability, because without that, you can't really pass go. You can't help understand workflows or eliminating waste from your workflow that's prohibiting further production or output. So I think that's the first biggest gap is how are we currently understanding visibility, not necessarily the lagging indicators. We've had that for decades.
Yeah.
Right. We know how many pigs are out the door. We know how,
if you have no lagging indicator,
Yeah.
what are you doing with your business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone has that.
Yeah. I was going to say we've had lagging indicators, but it's what is actually being done today and then at what rate. So I think that's the first huge gap right there. And once you can develop that to whatever varying degree, because obviously there's a limitation outside of like having computer vision on every single fairing room and everything else like that, right? Is once you have that level, then you start to understand the actual workflow, not necessarily just what is done at the crate or the stall or in the slot for anything else like that, but like what does her or his steps look like in order to achieve that? What is prohibiting it? And you can dive into different things of like, where is my equipment? How close is it to me? How am I removing the waste of excess movement? How am I removing the waste of redundancies in paperwork or other processes, right? Or trying to find somebody. So it's really eliminating those wastes that's prohibiting that 2 or 3 or 4 to 1 ROI for that particular position or even more, right? I look at production managers today from a lean management standpoint, and there's a lot of missing gaps for them to being able to help elevate their managers to their maximum ability. Maybe it's by direction on the day. Maybe it's other items getting thrown on their plate, having insufficient information to where they have to physically be there on site to help understand a little bit further. Otherwise, they're answering a phone call. They're trying to paint the picture. They're looking at some lagging metrics, and then they're using, educated estimates based off of their experience.
Well, lean is based off of the book Toyota Way, right?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So based on that, and then your experience, and then some assumptions, because obviously there's people listening and we have no idea how you do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of the swine industry do you think implements lean management the way it's worked for Toyota and the way that book guides people to develop that?
So to that level, I mean, close to zero.
That was my guess.
I was going to say,
close to zero.
And I was going to say, I can't say zero because I haven't seen everybody. But zero. And that's just because, again, like without that full on visibility, and of course, like manufacturing facilities, you're going to have visibility.
It's easier.
Yeah,
there's not a living animal.
Yeah. So, my grandparents raised me. My grandma was on the executive team of Massey Ferguson from a leadership role at one point in time. Grandpa worked the production line at John Deere. So even in the 50s, and then she was there in the 70s and 80s, like they had more visibility or just as much visibility as we do today because it's everything centered on one, and they were already using computer monitor systems for uptime and downtime, more manual typing back then, right? As far as uptime and downtime, but they were tracking it 50 years ago.
But the industry's working towards it. So the thing people should hear is if you're doing lean, unless you have visibility into all aspects of operations, you're on your path to lean. And so what does visibility mean?
Yeah, so it can mean a variety of different levels, right? But ultimately, you have to understand the inputs. What is the actual workflow of the employee from start to finish? And then also, like, what are they doing physically at what rate and at what quality? So there's varying, as you could tell, like that's why I said, like computer vision, picking up on tendencies and quality controls is about as high as you can get, right? And that's not very cost effective or anything else like that. But from a general, if you understood their workflow from start to finish, now I do have a lot of farms and systems asking me today, how can we start tracking starting time of a task and the end time of a task? And we work through that and we find solutions. So we're heading in the positive direction, and we're starting to understand, hey, like what if we start time boxing a little bit? How long should it take to power wash this room? Can we track it effectively and then start to look at it? Because from that information, you can start to look at other technologies or environmental things, automated power washers.
At that point, you're just process mapping.
Exact. Process mapping, right?
Yes.
Visibility, process mapping, and then reducing waste and leaving more time for what really matters and what's going to be the most bang for your buck.
And the idea of lean management is almost an ongoing, real-time process mapping of what's happening in operations.
Yep.
So instead of going in and saying, oh, we're going to hit the stopwatch, start, stop 100 times, what was the average, that's what we're going to time box, it's continuously and forever evolving on the people, the changes, and all the interactions that come into play. You talked about computer vision, but robotics. Like if I'm in a manufacturing facility and I have a little robot running around doing things, you're tracking it. Where is it? What's it doing? Because its code base will be able to tell you it was stocking this shelf. It was cleaning up this mess. But with people, it's more complicated.
Yeah. And our customer success team really does that on a day-by-day basis, and we're starting to develop that internally. And the reason being is if we find a more effective or efficient way or another resource that our team members need out in the farms, or our producers do need out in the farms, we actually pull that workflow out, make that edit, and then that champion is responsible for training the team on it, because we will identify new things and new hurdles all the time, and we can then start to track what is impactful now and what don't we even do anymore. Because I'll look at lean management, and I could bet you I can go into an organization or a plant or anything else like that, and they're like, hey, look at this workflow. I'm like, oh, we haven't done that for 2 years. I got a great story. Somebody that worked in the accounting department for a agricultural company, I'll say, for not one that I worked for. She worked there for 25 years. And about 20 years ago, they had her start filing some documents, right? That was part of her workflow, right? She'd print this off. She'd put this in the filing cabinet. Filing cabinet's full, okay? Come to find out, when she had stopped doing it, they hadn't needed those documents for 6 years. For 6 years past they needed it, she just kept doing it because nobody understood what her workflow was. So yeah, I've met people in production systems that post pig flow. Maybe internally the communication wasn't there, and they had been collecting things maybe for a couple months. And then found out they didn't need to do it, and they were mad. Right? Because that's 2 months of work I didn't need to be doing. It was no value, and it took time. I can't imagine how mad somebody would be after 6 years. She actually, so she smiled.
Oh, okay.
It was just kind of
she handled it well.
She was just kind of like printed off the thing and
assholes.
just did the thing. Right, exactly. Nobody will let me know, right? So yeah, but those circumstances, they're happening in your farm today. They're maybe they moved their workstation or where something was going or anything else like that, and the cart is on the other end of the farm. Why is it on the other end of the farm? Because when it arrived, that's where they put it. So they just kept putting it back there versus like on the other end of the farm where they typically need it.
Yeah, grandma's meatloaf, or what is it? The ham.
It's you cut off the edges of the ham and to put it in the oven or whatever else, and it passes 3 generations.
Yeah, to cook, it's important you cut off the edges of the ham.
Yep.
And that was because great-great-grandma had too small of a pan for the ham to fit.
Exactly, yep. Same thing.
We did it because that's how we've always done it. So on that note, just to clean things up, because we are with Swine Tech, we are bringing pig flow throughout the industry.
Yeah.
Pig flow is a meaningful part of bringing visibility to the day-to-day.
Yep.
But pig flow in and of itself, all alone, does not mean you are a lean operating system. So let's say with pig flow, you're capturing your day-to-day, you have the visibility of what team members are doing on the farm. What at the executive level has to happen now that you do have visibility of what's going on to actually still successfully implement a lean system?
So that first step is, just if we're talking about pig flow, we provide an employee actions report. And this is not necessarily accountability or a big brother approach, but helps actually map out a workflow. So I was actually showing this to one of our producers yesterday, and you can see this farrowing technician as she navigates throughout her day.
It's so cool.
And it's really cool, right? And on more than one occasion, we've found a farrowing technician or day one care person breeding. And it's like, why? Because they know how to do it and they needed the help, right?
Like 1 p.m, too.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what?
It's like you're stopping and
it wasn't a second service for the day. It was like, what's going on?
Yeah. And it's like, and that's happening in the swine industry, obviously, but it's also happening in other industries as team members are getting pulled in different directions. And part of that's because these individuals had that knowledge, so they're a little bit more versatile. But in every single one of those circumstances, the owner or the production manager, this is from this recent experience, they're like, hey, that's not where your revenue to wage ratio is at. They didn't say that.
Yep.
But it's like, that's not where this money's invested.
Just perfect that you're bringing it to that, because one thing that is, we'll call it typical. I'll say it's almost 50% or more of the time is we'll look at that day zero pig care activity, and we will find after break that day zero really takes a dive. And what's happening is the staff are falling behind.
Yep.
The sows will farrow themselves, obviously not to the quality that is expected. But if we take the day zero care person and apply them to breeding, moving sows, washing, we'll still be able to catch up and go home on time.
Yeah.
Having your day zero care person forego checking sows and having stillborns for the sake of getting home an hour early, the revenue wage ratio is off.
Right. Exactly.
So can you explain then, when you have, I guess, visibility into labor and cost and hours, how do you practically use labor to wage ratio as a part of your day to day, like you would PSY or your other key metrics to understand profitability and the proper utilization of your resources?
Yep, and then different producers are going to have different feelings about what metrics from the standpoint of revenue will contribute the most. But because you now have visibility, you understand to a level like their process mapping, what they're actually completing from a task standpoint. Hopefully you have some quality level of metrics as well too, not just a completion rep level. You can start to correlate, and because a lot of our processes that we really focus on, it's from experience, but it's also from research studies and things of that nature.
So much research that's been done on the processes.
Right, exactly. So in this, 50 sow farm situation, this worked. All right, now we have to scale that across from 50 to 5,000 sows, right? What does that look like? And, when these employees are completing these tasks, is like as soon as you understand visibility, what is getting done, to what level it's getting done, how often it's getting done, you can really start to understand, okay, are my metrics moving that I'm expecting to move, right? I think that's the biggest thing. And then ultimately you have environment, you have genetics, you have feed, some other cost barriers and impactful things that come in to contribute to it. But then ultimately your executive leadership team can start to draw, okay, when we really nail these two processes, we start seeing vast improvements, right? And the ones that we want to see, and ultimately it's pigs out the door, or it's pigs going to the plant. That's going into, or pounds, that's ultimately what it's going to end up in. And so, but what will also happen is if they do start nailing down, like we had some experiences with split suckling, right?
Yeah.
Using our split suckle tracker, it's like when we nailed down on it, we had visibility, we were executing it properly, and
it wasn't working.
So that's the other thing, is like what during that hour time frame are you expecting returns when one of them is it's a net negative?
Yeah, I mean, so we're kind of in a world then where you have like your performance monitor on the south side. We've been able to have metrics for decades.
Yep.
And now we're creating metrics on the employee side and then comparing the two. So if I have an hour and I'm paying somebody $20 and I'm expecting $60 of value, and now I can start to see, well, do I put it in split suckling? Do I put it in biosecurity work? Am I checking sows? Where am I bringing the ROI of that hour, which isn't easy to understand without that clarity.
Right. And, ultimately too, that, you deal with other factors like health, like labor, things of that nature. But when labor does go down, this is where it becomes even more important, because you did go from 10 employees to 7. Now you can really say, hey, if nothing else, Matt has to do this today.
Yeah.
And then being dynamic enough to where the manager knows, hey, this is what needs done today. Now they're obviously they're coaching. They have their own experiences. They're very knowledgeable. I'm not demeaning that at all. But it helps put some data behind it and some confidence behind what should be done and what should be left alone for the day.
So because then it's like I've got the basic things. I need to go in and I need to make sure the facility, feed, water, air.
Yep.
That has to be right. Yep. Animals have to be bred.
Yep.
When they come into heat. I need to farrow and wean. So you got the basic things. And then you've got, I'm going to go and do my body condition measurements and my feed adjustments. I'm going to go around and I'm going to see if I need to spot treat any animals that are getting sick. I need to go check sows that are farrowing. I need to go and foster piglets. Some of those are more valuable than others.
Right.
And so now that I'm understaffed, where should I be pouring my time? If a sow is sick and ends up dying from that sickness, was that sow, the discovery of that one sow in the farm, more valuable than properly supporting 10 that are giving birth? Or should I be managing body condition scores because of the down road consequences of how that's going to impact their farrowing, lactating, breed back? There's too many choices for anybody who doesn't have extensive experience in this industry to know how to allocate properly that labor.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah. And it kind of goes, what was the most recent coaching? I know that, and that goes beyond data analysis and everything else like that. That is a relationship between a farm manager and their supervisor. So there's a difference. Now we're starting to get into not necessarily the needs of the herd, but hey, what was I coached to do, and what will I execute on?
And a lot of that's probably pretty opinion driven.
Yeah. So trivial knowledge, right? I think I heard some, like, when I came in the
not
industry,
due to a lack of effort,
right?
Just a lack of clarity. In the moment. And so it's like, historically, this is what worked, or this is what we've done. So maybe that's the priority this time around as well.
Yeah. I always get a good kind of a kick out of like grow finish ventilation in regards to like the guy who's been working finishing barns for 30 years. And he's like, well, in October when the wind's kind of out of this direction, this is how I like setting my barn, and it does really well. And then you have like the recent Iowa State graduate, and they're like, hey, like I got to pull out my pen and paper or my calculator. I got to do some calculations. Like, I want to make sure this is just right. So it's just like, it's those two different worlds. So it just reminded me of that one. But ultimately, as you're saying, hey, we got a laundry list of things to do. What do we do next? What's the most important? That's when you brought up lean management. Those items have a higher cost when you're making them inefficient. So if I don't have a way to identify those 10 sows and help my employees understand where they're at, they're walking rows. Now all of a sudden, we just turned a 5-minute task or a 10-minute task into a 30 to 40-minute task. Now you're saying, well, now that's not as important because the cost is much higher.
Yeah, so, the cost of somebody saving let's say somebody can wash a room half hour faster because of innovation. And so every other day, maybe even every day, we're gaining that half hour back. Awesome. But saving a half hour of the manager having to walk out to the breeding barn, and every question, it's on average about 15 minutes of inefficiency from some research. And so if I have to walk out to the breeding barn twice in a day to ask a question, that half hour of that manager's time walking out to ask a question to get an answer versus the half hour we're consistently gaining, that half hour of that manager's time is probably what, 2-3x the cost to the system?
Yeah. So you're looking at, I'm going to say like, we're going to put $35 on it, times 5. So you're looking, that's $170, $180
of cost. To go walk out and ask a couple questions. Versus, I think a lot of times we're looking at, and it's fair, right? We're looking at some of those roles people don't like to do and they're hard to hire for. So there's other varying components and risk factors and so on. But if I do, let's say I'm trying to, or I can cut back 20 hours a week from something. And you're telling me, well, that's a 4-to-1 or that's a 5-to-1. That's worth $100 an hour. But I'm only paying 20. It can be hard to say, well, no, that seems like fictitious math. Like I saved 20 hours times the $20 I'm paying per hour, not 20 hours times the ROI expected value of that hour from that employee at 100. How it seems like fairy tale dust. Right. Like, ooh, like it's worth 100. We just saved you all this money. And it's like, no, I just saved $20.
Right.
how do people need to think about that differently? Because this revenue to wage ratio is not new, like you stated, and
Right.
people use it everywhere.
Yep.
There's a reason it's there, and it's because it's not just $20. But how did you change your frame of mind, and how did your mentors coach you in your previous roles to think about that differently when it is opportunity versus kind of cost?
One statement, and I still ask this to this day when that topic comes up, cross industries, ours, manufacturing, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
Because I still have colleagues, friends, peers, mentors outside. Somebody asked me, he said, do you think a company has ever hired somebody for break even? And I'm just like, no.
Added complexity at no benefit.
Yeah. It's like, no. Like, you expect a return. It's like, do you think a 2-to-1 would be okay? Probably not. And they just kind of looked at me like, hey, and I'm kind of a young guy, supervisor. I'm like, yeah, I guess that is legit.
Is that kind of like you're in the NFL and you're like, we're going to make a trade on quarterbacks. And I'm going to trade, let's say, I'm going to trade a guy that threw 30 touchdowns and 3,000 yards and 7 picks. And you know what? I think we're happy if we get somebody who threw 30 touchdowns, 3,000 yards, and 7 picks. It's like you're getting the same freaking thing.
Yep.
That's a break even.
Yeah.
Why would you make the trade? Why would you add the complexity? People just don't do that.
Right.
There has to be some kind of a benefit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what type of team morale? Is it a different system? Is it different longevity? Things like that. You know, we're looking at professional sports, and I hear it all the time. Oh man, they get paid so much. You know, they're paid too much. If anybody wants to like chat GPT or look up the value of an NFL team in 1990 versus today, like multiples of multiples. So I think they're making the right call, right?
Well, I mean, how many people, the great thing about sports, and for people who don't like sports, it probably gets annoying.
Yeah.
But the wonderful thing about sports is the scrutiny and the visibility into everything that they're doing on the field, and then even off for the owners and the coaches, is you knew exactly what happened. You know.
Yeah.
And you've seen them compete against other people that are getting different deals. If people today could sign up for that same level of scrutiny, somebody's always watching you from a camera,
right,
and they're judging you against somebody who could also be in that role that you could trade for or hire or bring up in the system, I don't think most people would be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why they get paid a lot.
Right.
Is because if they start to suck, they lose their job. It's cutthroat.
Yeah.
And I think most careers, most jobs aren't cutthroat. You can be average and skate by because there isn't that level of scrutiny, that level of compensation. And
yeah, so on visibility, and we're talking probably NFL, things like that. You have some high visibility positions, right? Everybody's going to look at Lamar Jackson, or the next big quarterback, things like that. But then,
not the right tackle.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So like now we're right next to offensive line U, right? I'm going to call that out for Iowa right now. So like with everybody coming out of it, like Tyler Linderbaum is he the highest paid offensive lineman right now, or the highest paid center?
I think he's the highest paid center, and then I think the highest paid left tackle is
Tristan Wirfs.
Tristan Wirfs from Iowa as well.
So
and then one of your highest paid other linemen, if you call them a lineman or tight ends, George Kittle.
Right, exactly. So just if anybody's out there that they have a high school student that just so happens to be 6'8", 290 pounds, send them to Iowa City and we'll help you out.
Yeah.
But what they're really doing is, GMs, coaches, they're looking at tape. They need another level of visibility for these positions in order to compensate. They're just not looking at stats. So the other thing that our teams love in the farm today with PigFlow is those farrowing technicians, the department heads, things like that, they can actually start to see their visibility and provide it of how did I do? Like, where was my performance? Where was my inputs? How can I improve? Because NFL players, any other role, it's like, yes, they're watching game film on their opponent, but they're also watching game film on themselves and helping understand how did I actually perform in the moment and where can I improve?
That's a good point. A lot of people, we would do that with presentations, pitches. Most people are very uncomfortable listening to themselves.
Right.
And it's so powerful to be able to do something, go back, dissect it, and then go and strive for improvement. A lot of people and a lot of industries are not able to understand, how did I do today? What did I do today? What could I do differently going in the future to be better?
Yeah. And, we always talk about the compliance rating of, when we kick off a farm and things like that, and it's lower than expected. But those farrowing team members are much like, they're like, hey, like, I didn't even realize this. It's because they needed a tool to help them. It had nothing to do with like their intent or if they wanted to put forth effort or anything else like that. It's just providing the right resources and environment, visibility for those team members to succeed too. So,
well, you see that with electronic sow feeding too, right? I mean, you have people who believe that, we're doing a good job, and then all of a sudden you can get a little bit more visibility into who's eating well, who's not eating well, who's the martyr sow, who's the sow that's starving or litter, and you can get to a level of depth and understanding that can tell you, okay, we're doing a good job feeding sows or we're not. Where if it's pen-based or crate-based, it's a little bit less obvious at times.
You probably know we talk a lot about innovation in pork production here. What you might not know is SwineTech, the team behind this podcast, is leading the charge with their PigFlow platform. SwineTech is dedicated to empowering pork producers worldwide to provide high-quality, individualized care for every pig. Their world-class workforce management and point-of-care platform, PigFlow, streamlines, automates, and monitors routine and emergency care, communication, daily workflows, administrative duties, and herd diagnostics. This enables producers to optimize workflow and task clarity, execution efficiency, prioritization, and simplification of compliance assessments. PigFlow empowers managers with the ability to analyze and refine their processes and make adjustments to enhance overall value. If you're interested in learning how producers are maximizing their resources, enhancing efficiencies, and improving employee engagement in pig care with PigFlow, visit swinetechnologies.com.
So how should people take what we're talking about and apply it in practice from a revenue to weight, regardless of what systems you're using?
Yeah.
Pen and paper, PigFlow, other technologies.
Yep. So a couple of things that we talked about today was obviously revenue to wage ratio, which was the topic. We tied into lean management with eliminating waste a little bit too. I would say the first thing to really do is just do what you can with the resources available to understand what is the reality. Like, what is the level of visibility that you can have? So we always joke too. When before I was met you at NPIC in 2021, we didn't have Farrow Tracker, but I was actually having my sow farm managers and my department heads going and auditing sow cards and like what their checkup times were, and then like what was the quality. And it would kind of go back to a Power BI chart. And that was what we had, right?
But that was a true audit too. I mean, a lot of people write on the card the times.
Yep.
It rarely ever gets used.
Yeah.
You were using that.
Yeah.
And in a lengthy way, you were figuring out, what are we doing?
Yeah, right. And then some guy in my session was like, hey, I actually have this tool. So
yeah, that was fun.
But yeah, going back to like what can they apply? That was just an example of like is using of what level to with an efficiency and effectiveness and impact can we maybe have some additional visibility, not just for leadership and understanding what are the inputs and the outputs, but further visibility for their team and what are they doing that matters, right? Because when they understand what matters and then they see the impact from their inputs to outputs, there's a level of conviction and passion of what is going on and being put into the work. The other area that can be a little bit more in the lean management area and tying into that is actually just going out. How's your farm set up? Where are we wasting the most time? From an excess of movement standpoint, or are we using excessive like treatments or semen or whatever else it is? Are we eliminating waste? Are things going expired? Are we getting there on time? You can start to ask those some questions today without even a complex system.
How does somebody do that without the team feeling as though it's micromanagement?
Bring them in.
Visibility does not mean visibility and timely adjustments does not mean micromanagement.
Yep. So one thing for a leadership role to understand is the second that happens first within an organization, or you bring somebody in that's new to that, is they're going to feel like I'm going through an audit, right? I am going through an audit of my performance, my worth in just there's a level of tension. So what you do next is incredibly important as a leader. If you're encouraging, as soon as you find opportunities, you're helping them find solutions, you're helping them find improved workflows, you're giving them the resources available. That's a collaboration. And then, a lot of organizations within different industries will assign a location champion for that, right? And I always suggest it should not be a sow farm manager. It should not be a department head. The reason being is that they need somebody else coming in with visibility to own and champion that process themselves. And it doesn't need to be very extensive. I'm not talking about a full-time position or anything else like that, but something it's somebody else other than the leadership at the site. So,
well, and lean management in and of itself, it can be overwhelming to people who aren't naturally maybe a process-minded individual. You're more process-driven than I am.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's much more natural for you, and it probably fills your bucket where for some people it might actually drain theirs. So yeah, finding the people who, one, have the time and capacity, but two, want it.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for the seat on the bus.
Now, here's really another thing that's outside of lean management because it begins against the concept, but this is reality. So we're, you mentioned me and Abe are a little bit more process driven as well too. Is I would need the creatives, which would be on your end, and then the process people would be the execution. Because just think about a farm. If we were in a farm and you were a department head or you've been there a while and you've established your workflow, your mindset, you'll go out and find the most efficient way to do it with the most impact. You're going to do the discovery for me, and then it's my job to scale it.
Yeah. And operationalize it and scale.
Yeah. Much like our team operates today, right? Yep. So
yeah, I'm out there creating new problems.
And you're just like, hey, we're going to do the thing. You guys figure out how it's going to happen after I develop it or after we make it up, and I'll check back in. No, we're pretty connected, but
so in light of all these topics, we kind of move into another one around all of this, which is around the idea of promotion. I know it's common throughout the industry for us to look at the pyramid of hiring and promotion to be tied to the title.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to make more money, then you need that title. And so we'll take somebody who is a phenomenal breeder, great person in that environment. Their bucket is filled. They're great for the culture of the farm. It's perfect. Manager leaves, and we pull somebody out of their perfect world and we move them into that manager role, which they're not ready for or equipped for or wanting. But we were worried that person might leave, so we need to get them more money, so we need to put them in a better role. How do you think through that? I mean, what did you at New Fashion Pork? Did you guys have an approach for that? Did you kind of fall subject to that same challenge, which is, how the bench is set up for progression and compensation?
Yep. So, and I won't speak at, for New Fashion Pork today or anything else like that, but I'll answer it generally on how I would see it, throughout my career in HR and different industries, things like that. Is your larger companies are going to be very, if they have the pay scale of like, hey, this position is between this dollar amount and this dollar amount, that is a disadvantage for the scenario that you're bringing up. So for my producers that are maybe smaller to mid-size who have some flexibility, for that breeding department head, if they're going out and they're doing an excellent job day in and day out, consistency, they can bring on other breeders, things like that. That's your own call, but I would pay that breeder a little bit more, or even to the level of what I would say exceptional, if I can get away from it from a standpoint of there's some other labor laws and making sure everybody's paid close to the same, is what is the worth of that role? And that's when we get back to the revenue to wage ratios, because he or she is going to be consistent. They're going to show up. I can put this on auto. And it's like, wow, the power that somebody just shows up day in, day out, and just does it consistently with relentless quality.
The
100%.
cost of dropping a couple percent in conception rate,
Yeah.
or we'll talk about just gestation barn leads and farrowing rate.
Yeah.
We should have just given the guy a $10,000 raise.
Yeah.
The cost is so much greater.
Yeah.
To move him up and then to have that drop.
Yeah.
While we hope he learns how to manage people.
Yeah. And
when he didn't even want to in the first place.
Right. That's what I was going to say is like,
or
make sure
thought he had to get the money.
Which is where it usually goes, right? It's like, hey, if you were just to continue to do an amazing job with what you really enjoy and got paid more, would you do it? And it's like, more often than that, yeah. And then others.
That is the path of least resistance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we did a lot of, as far as, I've done this in mining and pork industry and others, is like doing a lot of personality or strengths assessments, things like that. Is you're taking a a person in that situation who wants to work. They're very detail oriented. They have a pattern. They like working with their hands, things like that. And then like you're taking them to, you have to manage people and you're no longer doing the thing. So that's a bridge that some can make and they do amazing jobs, right? There's some that could do it, but they don't want to. And so ultimately you just got to understand your people, but take a step back, ask yourself of like, what does this person really want out of this? And how can we help this benefit the person and then also our team the most?
You see it a lot in the startup world where, and maybe more with technical talent, you have an engineer, it's brilliant. And, maybe we'll even call them arrogant for the sake of this conversation. And they're like, I can go build this great tool. Awesome. You absolutely can. You did it. You're like, I'm going to be the founder and CEO. And then they step into that role and it was nothing like it was anticipated. But instead of just saying, yep, that's not me, I'm going to go be the CTO and we're going to hire in somebody to handle business development, vision, strategic relationships, people management, all the stuff. They sit in that, and what it costs them is their whole business.
Yeah.
A lot of people step into that role and they're like, yeah, this is nothing what I expected. But when it's your own business, you have a little more control to say, if I step back, I'm still going to get paid because I'm going to focus on what makes the most sense there. If I'm in a farm, a lot of times if that manager steps into that leadership role and then says, whoa, this isn't for me, I'm not sure the industry responds well on behalf of that person. I think sometimes it's, well, you can't cut it. All right, now I might focus on you less for other professional growth because I thought you were the future, but I'm going to go focus on this person. And so there's like this fear of like my career getting flushed down the drain.
Yeah.
If I say that's not the direction I want to go. I'd rather be the best breeder in the operation, the best farrower in the operation. Heck, could be some other role. If they say no to that promotion, it doesn't typically get to end well. Yeah, it seems.
Yep, and that's the thing is like in the HR world or in business world, it's like you go up and out. For those type of things, like we promote them up into the point where it's like, oh, you can't cut it out as a manager. Then they don't feel like they can take a step back and still be worth the same value.
And then they leave.
Yeah, they leave.
And then they end up going and doing a role that is more what they should have been in the first place if there was that collaboration. And now a competitive group is winning because of it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this before I hit how you translate some of this into your personal life?
My wife's going to be pretty scared. She's going to be like, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
No, I would say I would really encourage, and this is just not for the producers, this is for the partners as well too. This is for anybody that's listening, is like start to look into like your inputs versus your outputs, connecting with your team, helping understand like where you can be the most value. Because ultimately when you find that out, you feel less jam-packed throughout the day because you can put forth a lot of energy towards a few things that really matter. And you're going to see your results go up. And then also pay attention to where you're wasting time and then start to cut that back as well. And that's just, and then now that's going to tie into like personal life as well too and fun stuff like that.
Are you good with people who are saying, you know what, this is interesting, but it's kind of confusing. There's a lot here, a lot more to unpack. are you okay if people reach out to you for just a conversation on, if I want to learn more about lean management, if I want to learn more about revenue to wage, where should I go to learn more?
Yeah. No, I would absolutely love that. Still take calls even outside the industry today for fun stuff like that with colleagues, different people that I've worked in the past.
How do they get a hold of you?
So just want email, phone number. I can lay it all out there.
Go ahead and share whatever you're most comfortable with.
So I would go to, I want to make sure that I'm going to stay within my 10 to 5, like Barrett hours
there you go.
at night. So just B as in boy, and then Eller, my last name, and then at swinetechnologies.com. And if you shoot me an email, well, we can get something going. I can answer any questions. Would love to help you out as an individual or a team.
And then a lot of times, people who thrive on the business side and process are thriving in their personal life within process.
Yeah.
So how do you take lean management and apply it and time boxing to you? Let's talk about Barrett's day-to-day and how you think about your time and why this is such a natural fit for you to bring these types of activities into the professional environment.
Yeah, so you mentioned time boxing, which is, I think it's really beneficial because it can shed some light on where you're just absolutely wasting time. So, and that's even just outside opening your phone and looking at screen time, right? So when I set my Google Calendar, so like if Matt looks at mine for the next week, that is where I'm proposing my time is going to be allocated based off of my priorities. If you look at anything past yesterday, you'll actually see where my time went. And so I can actually look back and say, all right, where did my time actually go? Because then I can look back and say, man, I had an hour to like go over my customer success monthly summary for Abe. Like, how did it take me 3 hours? And it's like, oh, this customer called and like we were working on this project, things like that. And then I look back and like, okay, how can we support that again? So it doesn't become a fire we have to put out. Where can we build this within our processes? And I've done that since my DuPont days, and it's fared me fairly well. Now, if you want to like take it even further to like a personal level, right?
Yeah, let's go.
So like, let's just talk about me on the road. When I go to a site, we'll take, if I'm going out to Colorado, like I knew when I was at Jackson, like North Platte, North Dakota, or Nebraska was 7 hours from my house, and here's where I would leave. It is perfect because the Hampton Inn is right next to the Anytime Fitness, the Walmart, and the Dunkin' Donuts I'm going to get for the farm. And so
I was going to say, you're not eating the donuts.
No, gosh, no. But like I'm an expert deliverer of donuts and pizzas. But I'll actually look at, okay, how much time am I going to waste going throughout the town, getting things like that, versus like I know where I'm going to go in, I know exactly what I'm going to, and I'm going to be back active and working by this time. So
you're all about like, okay, I know the Dunkin's here.
Yep.
And I'm like, where's the unique donut the farm has never had that's in the area?
Yeah, right. Or like, getting there and it's like, man, I forgot to book a hotel.
Yeah.
Like that would be Matt style and be like, oh my gosh.
Well,
like,
anymore,
right?
It's so efficient with the apps. Just, all right, let's go to this one.
Yeah. And then, everything down from like, I own like the same 6 pairs of gym shorts and like the same Swine Tech t-shirts and wrestling shirts and stuff like that. So everything's just on auto. Now, my wife has been like amazing to me, and she understands my my craziness and stuff like that. And so,
what is one? And if this is too personal, let me know.
Oh yeah, I know.
What is one thing that she said? No, like we are not going to be like autopilot in this. Like,
If I'm home, so when I was off those my mini 3 week sabbatical during December that I had to take, right?
Barrett had too much PTO, so he had to take off December.
Exactly. We changed PTO policies, so like I just drove everybody nuts for 3 weeks. And so like, let's say I'm home, so like I was gonna be cooking dinner, right?
Yeah.
So like, what would you expect I'd do on the road? Well, like I buy a pork tenderloin. You don't have to cut it. It's prairie fresh pork, and I just take it out of the bag, throw it down, put some Kinders on it. It's ready to go for the grill. I set the rice cooker, and I throw potatoes in the oven, and then I can walk away because the pork.
Were you too efficient for the family?
Yeah, and it's like it's the same thing. I'm like, I know, isn't it great? There is no like wife's like unique Italian dishes she makes or anything else like that. And so my daughter, who's just this is her first summer not at home, so she's gonna be a junior at South Dakota State. She was like, Dad, I'm gonna be eating like you, like pork and or chicken and then rice all the time. I'm like, welcome to the world. And so yeah.
No, that's funny too, because for me, I live half a mile from a Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
So I'll drive home.
Yeah.
It's like a 20-minute drive.
Uh-huh.
Call Maddie.
Yep.
What do you want to eat tonight? She's like, oh, this or this. I'll pop into Hy-Vee, grab the pork chops, grab the green beans, come home, cook it. Next day, what are we eating? The world's our oyster.
Yeah.
I don't know the next day what we're eating because it depends on what the mood is and what Hy-Vee has to sell.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't waste food,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah. So like that's my wife's thing. I was like, hey, like if you're gonna be home like a night or two, like, you know, just throwing that out there. But I have mixed it up. I've marinated some pork and stuff lately, so I'm getting better.
So briefly here for the wrestling nerds.
Oh yeah.
And the industry.
Yep.
And we all know who you are.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got my Team Iowa cup here. So,
what is from the experience that you've had with your son Caden?
Yep.
What have you learned about NIL and wrestling and just that whole approach and advice you might have for parents whose kids are going through and wanting to be in wrestling?
Yeah, so luckily enough, Caden's not at even of the age of that, you know, so we're just not, but I do have friends that are coaches and, you know, former athletes and things like that. And for the former athletes who are now coaches and things, they're like, man, this is really tough to coach because the first thing I used to have to do after the NCAAs or our national tournament was, you know, understand what high school kid I'm going to recruit. Now I have to worry about what kids I have to re-recruit that are currently on my team. And so like that's their big thing is like, you know, immediately it's like, all right, like who's going to stay first? Because then I have to figure out who I have to go find. And so they're kind of juggling this right there. And ultimately, like when NIL hit wrestling, so all of like, other than I think Iowa and Oklahoma State, even Penn State loses money. All of the programs do not net, they don't have a profit. So it's a losing money sport, right? So you would think like NIL would not go towards wrestling at all. And that is crazily false. Is like there'd be, you know, decent starters, things like that. And they're getting tens of thousands of dollars a year in different packages and different things. And it's crazy, right? And then like, you know, we're just like, hey, if school would be paid for or close to, that would be amazing.
Well, wrestling seems to be a fast track into some really good schools.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about wrestling too is, you know,
if your goal is a great education, wrestling's a great path.
Yeah. So, you know, and I always like looking at like, you know, a lot of people from the NFL that are NFL fans knew who Luke Kuechly was, you know, linebacker for the Carolina Panthers. And if you listen to the Bussin' with the Boys podcast with them, he talks about, hey, I was just looking for getting a great education that I would not otherwise be accepted to. So I went to Boston College. He had no intent of playing in the NFL. And so one thing that's really popular for wrestlers, like it's not uncommon for a guy from Air Force or Army to do exceptionally well, or Northwestern. So it's really neat to see a lot of those, either the Ivy League or in the higher end universities, do really well and recruit really good kids. It's really kind of neat. So
you guys had a unique experience because Caden went viral, didn't he?
Oh, to a level, right?
A level.
Yeah. So, so
I don't know what you call that move.
Yeah. So, so Dowling Catholic. So Caden's high school. That, you know, we had a home meet against two other Catholic schools, or with Creighton Prep. I think they're Catholic school, and then Don Bosco. You know, near Gilbertville, right? And so we were doing kind of a duel did 3 duels that night, or numerous duels. Everybody wrestled everybody, and then Caden wrestled a state champion from Nebraska, who's, I mean, you know, Caden wrestles this kid 100 times, like, you know, maybe pulls off 10 times, right? And 20 seconds into the match, hits kind of a chest wrap and kind of does a backwards roll, ends out on top and sticks him. Like,
all right, backwards roll is he did a backflip.
Oh yeah. So like, so anybody that knows Caden, like he can bust out a front flip, a gainer, things like that. Like he got all of his athleticism from his mom, of course, right? And so yeah, he kind of hits like this backwards roll flip and from a chest wrap, pins the Nebraska state champ, and who does exceptionally well on the national level. And so yeah, it was really fun. Place went crazy. But yeah, then I wrestle post set and I gets like 60,000 likes or something like that. So it was really fun. So that was so that's some of the positive that social media can bring. Now for the other individual, that's some of the negative social media is. Like, it's not just a hearsay like we used to say, like, oh yeah, like I guess that
he
happened.
had a bad day back at school.
Yeah. So I'm just hoping like maybe down the road they stay in separate weight classes, right? so there's no redemption match.
So funny enough, Abe and I have a friend that went viral. We're talking millions.
Oh wow,
millions of views. They were looking at a pregnancy test, and she's sitting down behind the table, and he looks at it, and she's like, looks, and it's positive, and he's kind of shocked.
Yeah, and
she's like, well, take it again, and she stands up to go do it again, and she's 9 months pregnant.
Oh wow,
it was so funny, and yeah, that thing went nuts.
That's hilarious.
They were sitting in the delivery room.
Yeah.
And it was just another million.
Yeah.
Just blowing up.
That's hilarious.
It was pretty good.
That's fun.
So to wrap things up, what's a golden nugget? A bit of wisdom you might have for listeners. And before we hit the nugget, because we're talking about demand in the swine industry, I need you to share how much pork you've eaten to inspire other people to be better.
Yeah. So
maybe there's an award out there for somebody who eats more pork than Barrett and his family.
Yeah. So there is some Hormel sprinkled in this, right? But it's primarily prairie fresh pork tenderloin that we get. But I think we did the math. Like I would average like 2 pounds raw a day or close to. Caden's another pound. Kaiser's kind of making up, but it's like well over 300 pounds of pork, 400 pounds of pork a year between the three of us.
You said 600 some.
Yeah. So yeah, 600.
Yeah.
So yeah, if
I think you had 1,100 pounds of fresh meat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say I don't have my phone on me, but yeah, then you'd probably be correct. Yeah, because if you're looking at if I'm 2, 3, yeah. So that's you're right. It's about 600 pounds of pork a year.
And the average fresh pork consumed by the boomers is 30 pounds. And the average fresh pork consumed by the youngest generation is 5.5, 6 pounds.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eat up, guys.
Yeah, eat up.
Yep.
So what's a golden nugget?
So we've got a team member getting ready to kind of go through that next stage of life. And, just kind of like the tip of the tongue was like, what advice, things like that. And helping out young athletes as well still too is like 2 words like that just continue to come back to my wife and I is like relentless effort. And like it's just absolutely timeless. I think about my grandfather working production line at John Deere and and his dad who worked on the railroad when he was 11 years old supporting his sisters. And you think about marriage, academics, what we're doing today to help people working in the farm, whatever else it is, but like relentless effort is just it's an amazing thing to live by because you can imagine, like, you can't even imagine what you can put forth in your life and the amazing stories that you have with just thinking in that process. So, yeah, relentless effort sticks to me all the time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Popular Pig. We aspire to learn and grow together through the experience and wisdom shared by our esteemed guests. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues within the swine industry. For more information, please go to popularpig.com to receive updates when new episodes are available. Popular Pig is brought to you by SwineTech, the award-winning creators of SmartGuard and PigFlow. To learn how PigFlow can help you streamline your workforce and reduce piglet and sow deaths, visit swinetechnologies.com.